Guys, welcome back to my adventure of minis for our mixed media moods. Did you miss me? Because I missed you. Oh, I missed you so much, and I miss creating. And I'm so sorry about that big, huge gap in time. I was busy working on some other things. I have some huge Unwell Studio orders I'm finishing, and as well as I was doing some videos for Donna Downey. So you'll see those on my YouTube channel soon too. I just need to double check and make sure that I'm not releasing those too early. So for this project has lots of layers, tons and tons of layers. I'm calling it lovely layers, layers of love, because so much work went into this card, which is not at all what I had planned on. When I sat down, I said, well, I think it'll take me about 15 or 20 minutes, but it took me well over an hour, and that's not including the time that I sat and pondered between video takes. So keep that in mind. I did shorten this to 15 minutes. I'm going to try really hard to explain everything, and I've already missed some stuff by blabbering on, so let's get going. I chose this flash card that was in my project, in my stack of bases, and I've sort of been sitting on it for a little while trying to decide what I wanted to do. I didn't use it yet, even though I really wanted to, because I wanted to figure out something to keep those numbers. I love those giant numbers, and I love the shape of the card and the vintageness of the card. And you know what? By the end, you can't even tell. So I don't know why I was freaking out about not using it yet. I did use that Melon color of paint, and I did a couple layers of some washy type acrylics. That's just where there's a lot of water added to your acrylic, and you create like a color wash with it. So I did a lot of that. I did a couple layers of the pink, and then I did one, that's the Melon, that's in in the Our Mixed Media Moods Moodiversary supply list. And I also used a gray. This gray is from Amsterdam Acrylics. And I did a little bit of splattering and a lot of water and a lot of drying between the layers. And then I did some scraping of some gesso. And I wanted to do a little mark making. At this point, I'm still trying to keep the integrity of that big equation in the middle of the card. So you can see I'm kind of like working around it, trying not to cover it too much. I did some mark making with my Sharpie paint pen. I really do love these Sharpie paint pens, you guys. Dina Wakely, I took a couple classes from her, like one of her online classes and something else, I think, but she uses this Sharpie, and I'm so glad that I paid enough attention to the supply list to actually read and figure out which one she was using, because it is a lovely paint pen to have on hand. I have like 15 of them or something on hand, just so that when I run out, and then of course we use them in our classes too. But awesome, awesome stuff. I did use some Stabilo, and I realized that I had put way too much Stabilo on, and it was getting a little too dark. So then I just flipped the card over and I smushed it into my background paper. This is one of my favorite stamps for Viva Las Vegas stamps that I've ever designed. I've designed a lot of stamps for them now. I've been there for over 5 years, but this one, I love it so much. It's such a good size. It's a giant chevron, which I really love, and it has a lot of like textures in it, and it's very cool. So I stamped that with archival ink on cardstock twice, and you'll see why in just a couple minutes, or a couple seconds, I guess. They're going kind of quick here. Then I'm like looking at my card, and I'm thinking, man, it's getting really busy, and when I put the stamped image down, it's getting kind of lost, and I didn't like that. So I did some gesso. I applied some gesso with my fingers, and then I spritzed some water on the gesso, but I didn't spritz it directly. I wanted big droplets, and then I dried the gesso, and where the big droplets were, the gesso is not going to dry, so I blotted it up with a piece of muslin that I have sitting around, and that was kind of cool. And I decided to add some dots with the end of my paintbrush in that melon color, because I lost a lot of it by covering it up with the gesso and the Stabilo, and that happens, you know. Your layers, the more layers you have, the more intricacy there is to your piece, and you might lose some stuff, and you just have to go with that. You know, you either add it back in later, or you just know that it's under there and it's part of the story. So I obviously was not that happy by losing so much of the melon color. This card for me is inspired by the bottom row, I think it is, or it's in the bottom half at least of the mood board, and it is the popsicles. There's like pink lemonade popsicles, and they have big pieces of lemon inside the pink popsicle. It's adorable. Such a cute summer image. So at this point, I'm trying to really keep the integrity of that pink, but I'm just adding layers back and forth. I'm scraping gesso. I end up scraping a little bit of the gray in there, covering back up most of that pink, which in the end, we end up with a really nice swatch of pink on there. So don't lose hope. Don't lose hope, I promise. It ends up good. And yeah, just making sure I'm drying between my layers. So gosh, I've got Sharpie and gesso and paint and the card, and I've got Stabilo. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. So that, I mean, yeah, I just keep, it's like the dance. That's what I like to call it, the dance. I put some on, I take some off, I cover some up, I put some on. And it might take a while to get there. Like this card took me over an hour to get it to its finished piece, its finished state, but it's worth it. I did just do a little more of that washy pink. I'm trying really hard not to lose the integrity of that pink color. It's really beautiful. So now you can see what I'm going to do with these chevrons. The reason that I stamped it twice was so that I had one for the front and one for the back, because it's cardstock, but where those little chevron tails hang off, it gets pretty fragile. So just by doing it twice, I have plenty. Then I did some stitching with my machine and some black thread. I stitched around the edge of the card, but not over the chevron. I actually stitched along the edge of the chevron so that now there's like this really cool frame, and I love it. I love it so much. I actually did it on another card for an iCAD that I ended up losing the video to, so I knew for sure I had to share it. Then I got out that yellow color of DMC floss that matches our paint, and all of the supplies are listed below in the description box and or on my blog in a list if you want to see them there. And you can click all the links to take you to the appropriate product. Of course, you are definitely not obligated to purchase there, but at least you can see the right names and colors of the products that way, okay? So you know exactly what I'm using. I stitched on using this DMC floss and a Tandy leather needle. I stitched on a vintage button. I have like a handful of vintage buttons left. I did have a huge bag, but I've been using them in classes and on pieces. I'm sort of starting to run out. Every time I use one, I get a little worried. So I did some stitch on that button, and then I'm doing some like long sort of stitches, and they're not pretty. They're all different sizes. They start in different places. They're like very purposely not even, and it's a mark. I'm making a mark, but I'm making a textured mark, and it's like an actual texture application. I'm just adding some texture, adding some marks, and I'm bringing in that yellow now that was in those lemons that's inside the popsicle. So it's fun, it's great. I always stitch my piece in place on the back. And then generally, I didn't do it this time, but I will do it when I go to start adding things together and creating a final piece out of my little mini pieces. I usually secure my thread on the back with some gel medium just to make sure that everything is perfect and it's not going to tear out. I did do a little more mark making with my Sharpie pen, and I'm splattering some black around. At this point, I'm starting to realize that there are way too many small elements happening, and I need something larger to pull away from that. So I get out this, I love this. I love designing so much, you guys. Like, designing products is my all-time favorite, top of the food chain. I love it. So this sheet here that I designed goes with the Dreamscapes line for 7 Dot Studio, and these sticker sheets always have the same shape, but then I always get to design the inside. And this is the most amazing like bracket shaped piece. It's like a really fancy label, and it has the beautiful yellow color in it, and it's kind of golden, and it's a good complement to the DMC floss that's already happening on the right hand side. So I just plopped it down on the edge and folded it over. I think I would have actually liked to have left the sticker like it was and maybe just backed it like I did the chevron, but I'm not dwelling on that because I still really like how this card turned out in the end. Right now, for the last couple seconds, I've been working on making the sticker stand out. It was blending in too much, and I wanted it to have its own sort of life on the card. So I did a little bit of Sharpie paint pen, and then I did some Stabilo, and then I did some more Sharpie paint pen, and I'm kind of just going back and forth and trying things out. I'm still stuck on the idea that there may be too many small elements, and it's kind of not necessarily hurting your eyes, but there wasn't really anything to concentrate on except for the giant chevron. So I added the sticker, and now I'm coming back in with some really large white dots of gesso. I'm using a pencil to sort of circle some of them and add another layer, another design element. Sketchy is always really nice on next to paint, I think, because they contrast so well. I'm just sort of beefing up those circles now a second time, and I'm just using my finger. So it just depends on how much paint is on my finger, how big those circles get, which helps create a really organic look. Because I struggle with that a lot, thinking like, oh, they're too perfect, or they're not, they're not in line enough, they're too crazy, they're too weird. So a couple tips, any tips that I know I'll always share with you. And one of them is that if you use your finger, and you don't go back to the paint between each circle, then your dots are going to end up differently, because if you leave paint behind on the first one, you don't have paint in your finger, on your finger in the same place for the second one. So keep that in mind. Use your fingers or whatever you're using to make dots. Just don't go back to the paint every single time. I did think that I would bring in some more of that pink, and I decided to try and color the inside of some of those dots and see if I really liked it. As I'm watching the replay, I actually do like it more than I did at the time, and sometimes that happens. Like, sometimes you might need to do something and then walk away, but I was determined to get this done. I knew it was taking longer than I had planned already, and actually I could have left it right here at this spot. I really like how it looks right there too, but I lost too much of that pink. I kept saying to myself, like, well, now you have the yellow, but you don't have any of the pink left. It all got kind of either washed away or covered up. And so I decided to just slather on a big swatch of pink, and I really do enjoy it. I love the finished card. It is really fun. I was really drawn to, up in the right-hand corner of the video, you can see I have that's like my palette, the little pink, and it had those white dots on it. I was really enjoying that. Like, I kept finding myself looking up there and thinking, I wish that was on my card. So I just put it on my card. It's that easy, right? And when I put the pink swatch on, it covered up some of my big circles. And I thought that maybe what if I put the big white circles over the pink swatch? And then I really liked it. So then now I've brought that layer that before was underneath the pink is now on top of the pink. And it's very cool. It's easy, and it's such an easy fix, I should say. Not that I needed to necessarily fix anything, but I feel like it's a lot more aesthetically pleasing being on top of that layer. I'm going to do some stitching with the pink thread, the melon colored thread that matches that paint. And I'm putting in, because I already did like the long stitching in the yellow, I am now doing some French knots. And when you do a French knot, you come up from underneath and you hold your thread to the left while the needle is in your right hand, and you come towards you and under the thread, and you wrap around. Towards you and under the thread and wrap around. Towards you and under the thread and wrap around. And however many times you wrap the thread around the needle, that's how big your knot is going to be. And then you hold it really tight, and when you go back in just a tiny bit over from where you came out. You can't go in the same spot, but you go in a little bit over, and when you pull tight, nice and tight, then it knots. It turns into a little knot. It's really cool, and I love it. And I did tear one on accident, but I just got out my Tim Holtz tiny attacher, and I stapled right over that hole, and I just tried really hard to remember to keep the knots and the attacher, the little staple X's or X staples, I guess staple X's make sense, in odd numbers, and make them not too close together but not too far spread apart. Tiny bit of doodling there at the end, and we're done. So I'm really glad to be back, you guys. Thanks so much for watching my videos. I missed you. I hope you missed me. Check out these close-up shots. Definitely see what Jen's up to. Join our group. You guys, it's week 2, and I'm giving away a miniature art journal. So it has pages on the inside, and I'll get that up soon so everyone can see. I am really glad to be back. Please subscribe. Here are some other mixed media, our mixed media moods miniature videos you can see. And I'll be back shortly with another one. See you soon. Bye.